Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I am back on the Paper Tray Ink YouTube channel, and I'm sharing some brand new items. This is the Feather Friends 15, another wonderful bird. He's a big fat fellow, so he's very cute, and you'll see him a little bit later. Also using the Just Sentiment Snow, which has some great sentiments that you can use for the winter season. And then you probably remember Sprigs and Sprays before. Well, this is Sprigs and Sprays Holiday. So it has this wonderful foliage and some of my favorites, berries, and it has a matching die set. There is a new border. This is called Snowflakes, so it's on the border Snowflakes, and it has Let It Snow words that you can cut out as well. And then I'm going to be using a favorite, which is the scallop circles, and I'm going to be using the small one for this. So the papers I'm going to be using are very simple. I have a white card base, it's an A2. I have a piece of, you can use aqua mist or like robin's egg, and one panel of white cardstock. And I have some, these are all Bristol papers, these three. I have one that's cut to approximately 2 1/4 by 3 1/2, and then some other pieces. But I'm going to start out with that white cardstock panel, and I want to point out that this, it has the Let It Snow, but we're going to set that aside. And I want to point out that this border does not cut the edges or the inside. It just cuts the snowflakes. So you need to make sure that your paper is the size that you want it to be when you go and cut that out. And that's just what we're going to do. We're going to cut that out. And here it is. I have put some washi tape on it to hold it in place. And it has these really wonderful snowflakes that I'm going to pop out of here as soon as I get most of that washi tape off. And we're going to punch these all out, and I'm going to set those aside and use them a little bit later. But they're wonderful snowflakes, and they can be used for anything. But it creates this really nice border. I'm going to take my little tray and stick my snowflakes in there. Now I'm using some Expand paste by Sizzix. It's wonderful stuff. Some chunky glitter. This one is Twinkle Dust, but I have also L'Enfant here that I thought I'd show you. That's their chunky glitter, but any of your glitters will work. I just like the chunky ones. And I'm going to show you this Expand paste. It is like very creamy, super creamy, like very soft butter, and it goes on like a dream. And it's amazing stuff. Now you can put it on there very smoothly, or you can put it on there kind of rough, which is what I'm going to do, because that's going to give me even more dimension. I have a piece of paper there underneath it just so that I'm not so messy. And peel that up, but somehow I always get into a mess whether I have a piece of paper there or not. So I'm just going to add that on. And then now I'm going to take the glitter and sprinkle it on, and you can put on as much or as little as you like. And then once I have that all on, I'll tap it down. And then all it takes at this point is to have a very, very hot heat tool. So you can see that it went on where it's kind of translucent, kind of milky, translucent looking. And as I heat it, it turns white and more chalky looking. Now, the trick is that you do not want to heat it so much that you scorch the paper, but you heat it enough where the it starts to expand, and you can see how it's puffing up. That might sound that that's really tricky, and it really isn't as tricky as I was making it sound. Just be careful not to stay too long in one place because you can scorch it. And then you can see now, isn't that great? This wonderful dimension. I thought it just really gave me that snowy look, which is what I was looking for. So with that done, I'm going to move on to this little panel that I made. I told you this one's about 2 1/4 by 3 1/2. I spritzed it with water, and now I have just Hawaiian Shores, and I just kind of brushed it just using the cube just brushed a little on, and the water allowed it to blend a little bit. And then I'm going to put some of this expand paste on there. And I'm going to leave this fairly chunky too, where, you know, there's bits on there. Going to add the glitter as well. And then we'll heat this up just like we did before so that we can get this all puffed up. And again, you want to use a really hot heat tool, but you only want to stay long enough for it to puff up. And if you see some little milky areas, be sure, you know, you heat that up, because that just means that it hasn't expanded there yet. And there's our wonderful piece that's going to go in the center. It's going to be a nice complement. And I put a little bit of foam on the back of this centerpiece, and then going to tape it onto the snow border. And then with that, I have to always fiddle and stick that on. Make sure it sticks on really well. And I'm going to add some more double stick tape onto the back. You may have to use a little bits of glue if you need to on the very edges. I have my aqua mist, or like I say, you can use robin's egg. We do have a complete supply list. You can pop over to Foil Fox for everything, or you can have a more abbreviated supply list on paper tray ink. And then I put that on the card base. I put the snowflake on the card base, and we're going to set that aside, and we're going to move on to the bird. I put, when I do cut pieces apart, you know, some die sets, I do put them on a magnetic board because I don't want to lose these little pieces. And I've cut this all out. I'm using Bristol paper for this because I am going to do some ink blending, and I prefer Bristol paper for that. So I'll just take out most of the pieces. I'm leaving the little pieces intact because I don't want to lose them. There's like this tiniest little eye that would be so easy to lose. But we're going to just set those aside and work on the main pieces for right now. So the main body, I'm going to start out with some weather vane. And just spread this on here. I have a list of the colors. Yeah, these are all paper tray ink cubes that I'm using. You can use any that you like, but these work out very nicely. I'm using a little detail brush, and because I just want to get, I don't want to cover this whole thing with color. I want to leave some areas still white. And I'm blending on, I'm using a little bit of Hawaiian Shores too. And I'm being very, very careful with the Hawaiian Shores. You notice that when I tap on the Hawaiian Shores, I also then tap onto my glass mat so that I take off any of the excess, so I don't put a blob of Hawaiian Shores onto my bird. And I just kind of go around the perimeter of him on 3/4 of him. And now I'm going to take out some hibiscus burst and some pure poppy. And here I'll start out with hibiscus burst for this little breast piece there is. Now you could probably skip hibiscus burst and just have a lighter hand in some areas with the pure poppy. And but I do like it on, you know, right on this breast of him. I do like to add that hibiscus burst and the pure poppy. It gives it a little softer look to it. But now I'm just going to add a lot of pure poppy on this one edge of his kind of breastplate. I'm going to get that quite dark. Seems like it's quite dark, but it really isn't when you see him all come together, and you'll notice that a little later. Now I go back, typical. I'm going to go back and forth, putting more color in. This is Smoky Shadow, and it's a little bit darker. It's quite dark. It's almost black, but it is a gray. And I'm making his tail feathers quite dark. And there's his breastplate. And I'm going to work on his wings. I'm going to use a little bit of Hawaiian Shores, the weather vane, the smoky shadow, and I'm going to use a little bit of black, and I did put a dash of dark indigo in there. So I'm just coloring all of these pieces, both of all of his wings actually, or all of his feathers I should say, and making those quite dark. And you just want to put as much color on there that you like. I like them quite dark. Now I'm going to go on, and I've made that, there's a little tiny kind of sliver of a piece that I made red because it goes right above his breastplate. Then there is that black little teardrop shape. I just colored it with a Sharpie, but you can cut it out of black paper if you want, but I just skip that step and take a black Sharpie because it's so tiny. And his feet I'm doing in some grays and black. His beak I did with a little bit of summer sunrise. And now I'm going to put this guy all together. And you can see how easy he comes together. There are a lot of pieces to him, but you can do this just in a flash. It's just a matter of layering these dies and then just getting him. I think the trickiest part is the eye and the beak, because that's really going to give the expression. So I put that little black tear shape. There's this tiny little eye. I'm going to keep that white and put that in there, and then his beak is going to go on. And like I said, when you put the beak and the eye, really think about where you're going to put that, because it does really affect the expression of your bird. And now we'll put his feet on. He already had feet, but these just add a little extra dimension. And so our bird is nearly done. Just have to kind of fiddle with his legs a little bit. They are probably the most fiddly. And there's the bird. He's all done. And so we're going to then now set him aside, and we're going to work on the foliage. This is kind of one of our last steps. I'm going to cut them all out using the dies. You know, I like to cut out the dies and then put repositionable tape, which is what I'm doing here, so that I can put it in my stamp positioner. I just find that when I have all these little pieces, it's so much easier for me if I do it this way. I am not really good at stamping them and then cutting them out, and I like to have the dies stay intact as much as possible anyway, because I'm afraid I'm going to lose them. I've listed some colors here I'm using right now the ripe avocado and a little bit of the pine feather. I'm spritzing it, and this is Bristol paper again that I've cut this out of. And now I'm going to go on to the eucalyptus areas. I'm not, there's two sprigs of kind of eucalyptus looking. I'm using the ocean tides for this. It's perfect for that. And now that I'm done with them, I'm going to, when I do get done, I do take them out and then move on. Now I have this big branch that has these wonderful leaves. I'm using pine feather. I love these leaves. Making it very dark. I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. And you know, when you use the ocean tide, you may need to stamp it that a few times as well. Now the berries, my favorite thing. So this, of course, is going to be pure poppy I'm going to be using. And this is really going to make this branch come alive. And now I have some pine cones that I skipped them, sorry. I stamped them with cocoa bean. And now I'm just using a couple of markers to color them. There are solid stamps that you can color them, but I just like shading them. It takes just 2 seconds to do that with some markers. Then I took that scallop circle, I stamped the sentiment that I used from just Sentiment Snow in pure poppy. I have all my pieces here, and now I'm going to kind of arrange this, kind of get an idea how I want it to go. Now it's a little low, So I think I need to bring it up higher, but also I need to snip off all of those little ends to my branches. I have some foam tape on the back of my bird and my pine cones. I don't really need it for the foliage because they'll kind of stack up against one another. And you know, I rearranged these again to get these right, and you can see I did think I need to bring it up a little bit. And now it's just a matter of taking some glue, taking the release tape off of those ones those pine cones and the bird, so that I can position him. I'm going to tuck this little circle that I cut out of the scallop circles for my sentiment. And I'm going to just squeeze this in. Now this one I thought would be great with having the happy birthday, so burr for the winter, and I thought that was very cute, and it's perfect for my family because they all have birthdays in the winter. And then remember our little snowflakes. I'm coming back with those and adding those in, and that is going to be my finishing touch to my card. And see how all that dimension, and I just love how you can see that snow. You can see that it gives that kind of chunky look. It is a little bit of a mixed media look, but I happen to love that. I hope you did. And if you did, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And here is a list of a few things I've used. The Feather Friends 15, the Sprigs and Sprays Holiday, the Snow Flakes, and the scallop circles. But you can pop over to Paper Tray Ink and look at their supply list, and you can go to Foiled Fox, and we have a complete supply list and oodles more inspiration. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that we will see you next time.